Okay, Nisha Pile's in Stevenage, which is where Barbara Follett is fighting the seat. Is she safe as houses there? It's a top Labour target.
She's supremely confident of winning, David, and that's not just because of the results that are coming through across the country, but because her own private canvassing during today is indicating that Labour have a swing of something like 14 to 15%. Now, earlier in the evening, when I was talking to her about it, she almost couldn't believe that it could be possible. Now, of course, it looks like it's being confirmed right around the country.
Well, I mean, she'd be well in, and it needs a 3% swing or so, but what would happen to her if she does win? What does she expect to do in the new parliament? Because she was quite influential in creating the sort of Labour image, wasn't she?
Absolutely. But
she was said to be the person. She was said to be the person who got Robin Cook to wear brown suits because it went with his red hair.
Yes, and to trim his beard. More recently, of course, she's been championing women's issues, the need to get more women into Parliament, and the results we've seen so far this evening have confirmed how successful that movement has been. She was a leading light in the Emily's List group, and I think she's going to be very pleased.
Thank you very much, Nisha Pillay. Now, Dennis Mahoney in Falmouth and Camborne, where Sebastian Coe is in difficulty, or is he?
He is indeed, David, yes. Good morning from Falmouth and Camborne. It's all gone wrong for Seb Coe. This seat was a tight three-way marginal, but Seb looking depressed as he watches the votes come in. It's now a two-way race between Labour and the Liberal Democrats. The Liberal Democrats come second here in the last three general elections, and they're hoping to take the seat. But with Labour's performance tonight, it's anyone's guess. It's going to be a race to the finish.
Thanks very much. Tony, anything else to add to this while we wait to go to Enfield?
Oh, something very important is happening. The Conservative Party is becoming a minority English party. There's every chance that the Conservatives will have no seats at all in Wales after this election. It's perfectly possible they will have at most 1 or 2 seats in Scotland. The Celts clearly don't like the Tories. The Tories are virtually being eliminated from that part of the world. And that is really a fundamental change in the structure of the British political system. Here is the Unionist Party being driven out of important parts of the Union.
I said at the beginning, this is what happened after Gladstone's Midlothian campaign. The Tories were in retreat and in a minority in England. I think that's correct, isn't it? You're the historian, I'm not.
It's certainly not unprecedented. The Liberal Party in the 19th century totally dominated Scottish and Welsh politics. But to see this happening, this is 100 years later we're talking about. Mr. Gladstone's been in his grave for a long time. And it is, I think, a sign that something really fundamental and probably nearly permanent has happened. One of the things worth noticing, by the way, is that the Labour Party, in terms of its share of the vote, is not actually doing spectacularly well. It's getting about the same share of the vote it got, for example, winning a narrow majority in 1964. What's happening is that Labour is doing pretty well, the Liberal Democrats are doing pretty well, and that there is enormous tactical voting on behalf of those two parties. Where Liberal Democrats don't think they have a chance, they're going Labour. Where Labour people think they don't have a chance, they're going Liberal Democrat. And the Conservatives are simply being squeezed inexorably between these two forces. And they are down to, and will remain at, their worst figure in this century by a wide margin.
The result of the count in Dumfries we have, the Labour gain there, 16% swing, taking the seat from Struan Stevenson. Third safest seat in Scotland. And Romford, a Labour gain. Sir Michael Newbert out there. This was a classic stronghold of the Conservative Party in Essex. It's been taken by Eileen Gordon. Pudsey, Peter Bone defeated there, new Tory candidate. And a swing of 13% against him. The seat's taken by Paul Truswell. Bedford, Robert Blackman, the candidate there, defeated on a swing of 13%. Again, another huge swing. So the state of the parties, let's just have a look at that. It's 2 o'clock, just after. 215 results in, 190 for Labour, up 37. Conservatives down 43 on 10. Liberal Democrats 9, up 5. And the national parties up 1. A sensational result for Labour And this is how it's been coming through to us here in the studio. And up at Sedgefield Labour Club in Trimdon, Tony Blair has arrived. Can't see him. I think they're waiting for him. Well, when he arrives there, we'll get pictures of it. The surprising sort of hat you normally see at Conservative Party clubs. But Labour's had the bulldog in the campaign, and they've wrapped themselves in the Union flag, and they can wear the Union Jack on their hats. Paddy Ashdown joins us now from Yeovil, the leader of the Liberal Democrats. Mr. Ashdown, it looks as though you're heading for something like 50 seats at the moment on a 17% vote, which is a bit less than your popular vote last time. It means your vote has been, in your words, effectively used, doesn't it?
Well, I don't make predictions until the results are known, and then they're not predictions, David. As you know, I dislike predictions. So let's wait and see what the result is. But all the signs we're seeing is that there is a comprehensive endorsement from people in the country, especially in the seats that we've won, for the messages that we've put in what was a positive campaign which centred on two key things: investment in education and tackling the crisis in the health service. And we'll use every vote that people have armed us with, and the mandate they've given us, and the seats that we've won, to ensure that in the next Parliament we push that agenda forward, as no other party will.
Mr. Ashdown, I'll come back to you in a moment. We've just got a declaration coming through. If you could stay with us for a second.
I'm afraid I
The
can't.
referendum party candidates, 1,337. Neville Arthur Kenyon, Liberal Democrat, 4,536. And I hereby declare David Michael Chater to be elected a Member of Parliament for the Bury North constituency.
So, Bury North, a Labour gain. A defeat of Alistair Burt. So, Mr. Ashdown, you were saying in your speech when you had the count that you look to the Liberal Democrats to influence the changes in the nature of politics and the Constitution and all that. There's going to be obviously a hefty Labour majority. Do you think that Tony Blair will still stand by that commitment he gave to try and bring other parties in on the left into a sort of new cooperative agreement or some such?
Well, the Liberal Democrats are not on the left, Mr. Dimbleby, as you well know. We're a radical party, but we're an independent and distinctive one. If Mr. Blair is interested, as I believe he is, in a more pluralist approach to politics, that's a very, very good thing. We have to break out of the destructive tribalism in British politics, and I've been committed to that for 5 or 6 years now, and the strength of the Liberal Democrats will reinforce that process if Mr. Blair wishes to pursue it. As to the constitutional change, he's made an agreement. I believe him to be, I know him to be an honourable man. I'm sure that agreement will be fulfilled. What I'm clear about is that the Liberal Democrats now are a force that guarantees the modernisation of our constitution in the next 3 or 4 years. And for that reason, I believe that the next Parliament will indeed be a momentous and historical one.
How do you mean guarantees?
Well, if we get the more seats that we have, the more likely we will be able to buttress and push forward that process.
Of a reform to proportional representation?
No, not just proportional representation. You know as well as I that there's a constitutional package. It includes such things as a Bill of Rights, as a Freedom of Information Act, as a measure of sensible devolution in this country. It means overhauling our political system, and that is very important. All politicians ought to recognise that they have now lost the trust of the British people in a way that we have not seen before, and that's a very major problem for our democracy. We must now begin to address how it is we rebuild a link between government and governed in this country in order to rebuild that trust. Constitutional change, the modernisation of our system of government, investment in education and investment in health, and a clear and honest position on taxation is all part of that process.
Isn't it a difficulty for you that you get this strength, this new strength in the House of Commons, something like 2.5 or maybe 3 times what you had before, at the very moment that Labour roars ahead and gets a vast majority for itself, thus diminishing any influence you may have, once again.
I doubt that, but let's wait and see how the results play out, and in particular how the next Parliament is made up. Again, we can spend a lot of time making predictions about the future. Tomorrow morning is good enough time for that.
Mr. Ashdown, thank you very much. John Sopel joins us now from Tory party headquarters. John.
David, I've just been handed a news release from the Tory Reform Group, who represent the left of the party, and a sign of the bloodbath that perhaps is to come in the Conservative Party. Let me just read you a section of it. The election defeat that the Conservative Party experienced was wholly unnecessary. It was brought about by the rank treachery of the Tory right. They, ably assisted by the newspapers that back them, have run a vile campaign of hatred against John Major and his administration, almost from the moment of the sensational victory of 1992. And it goes on, those who cheered the defeat of Chris Patten at Lord McAlpine's home in 92 are all too typical of those on the right of the Conservative Party who've since worked tirelessly to remove John Major and to destroy the Tory party. Their actions are unforgivable. Now, this is being handed out here at Conservative HQ. The press releases are already being started to circulate from the left. No doubt we'll be hearing from the right wing of the party as well. But I think the omens from this sort of thing are not very good for the party.
Party of brotherly love. Thanks very much, John. Let's go down to Torbay, because we have the result, we think, after many recounts. I'm not quite sure how many, coming through from Torbay. This was a Liberal Democrat challenge to Rupert Allison, the sitting MP. It looks like a scene from South Pacific at the count at Torbay. Expect them to break into song.
Okay. As returning officer for the Torbay constituency, I hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate is as follows. Allison Rupert William Simon, the Conservative Party candidate, 21,082. Booth Graham Harry, the UK Independence Party candidate.
We're going to Harrogate now, Norman Lamont's result.
13,322.
Lamont, former Chancellor of the Exchequer,
Willis,
looking very sombre there.
George Philip, known as Phil Willis, Liberal Democrat, 24,000.
Victory in Harrogate and Knaresborough.
Quiet. Could I, please? Please, let me finish reading the result. 24,558.
And Rupert Allison has lost Torbay to the Liberal Democrats, so that's a double victory for the Liberal Democrats.
Has been duly elected to serve as the member for the said constituency.
Phil Willis takes it, and a third gain there. So Harrogate and Knaresborough, Norman Lamont is in second place to Phil Willis, the Liberal Democrat, leader of Harrogate Council.
At this election,
majority of 6,000 turning round and 9,000 majority for the Conservatives last time round.
Voting for more than one candidate, 19. Writing or marked by which a voter could be identified, 5. And unmarked or void.
Well, as they go on with the count there, in a moment we should be able to see the result from Torbay,
ballot papers rejected,
which was the Liberal Democrat gain by Rupert Allison. There you are, 12 votes, majority. Tayside North taken by the Scottish National Party. So Torbay, 12 votes after recounts. Rupert Allison, Nigel West, the writer, is defeated there. And the Liberal Democrats take Torbay. It's where they had their eve of poll campaigning speech just the day before yesterday. Kenneth Clarke in Rushcliffe pondering these results, knowing that some of the challengers for the leadership are in trouble. Michael Portillo may well be in trouble in Enfield. Edinburgh Pentlands.
4511. James Alfred Sibbett, Referendum Party candidate, 526. 526. Gavin Steele-Strang, the Scottish Labour Party
This is Gavin Strang's result. These are being declared in the same place. Gavin Strang, the Shadow Agriculture Minister, with his safest seat there. We're still waiting for Malcolm Rifkin's result to come through.
Ward, Scottish Conservative and Unionist candidate.
So we join Lance Price now in Enfield to hear how things are going there. This running story, Lance.
Yes, well, we've had some extraordinary results tonight, as we've been hearing, but I think we are about to have perhaps the most extraordinary. It looks from all the indications that we are hearing from all the parties that Michael Portillo has lost his seat here at Enfield Southgate. We're expecting to get the result perhaps in the next 10 to 15 minutes. But as I say, all the indications so far is that one of the leading contenders for the leadership of the Conservative Party in the event of John Major's resignation has lost his seat.
Lance, thanks very much. Robin Oakley, if Michael Portillo is really out, what does that do for the leadership?
Well, it's a devastating blow for the Tory right, and particularly for those on the Tory right who don't want to see John Redwood get the job after John Major. Obviously, this increases John Redwood's chances of being the standard bearer of the right in any Tory leadership contest. I think it makes it much more likely now that William Hague will stand, a 36-year-old candidate who is seen as a man of the right, but who doesn't upset the left in the way that Redwood and Portillo
does it make it easier for Kenneth Clarke? I'm keeping an eye on Sedgefield Labour just to see if Tony Blair arrives there. Does it make it easier for Kenneth Clarke or for Michael Heseltine or those on the left that Portillo's out of the running, if he is out of the running?
I think the degree of the Conservative defeat, the rout it is now becoming, makes the Tories inclined to look much harder at the men of experience like Michael Heseltine and Kenneth Clarke, and perhaps to pay a little bit less attention to the ideological bent of some of their candidates.
But what do you make of this? What do you make of this? What do you make of this thing that John Sopel read out from the Tory Reform Group? I mean, it sounds as though the party is imploding or exploding at the moment.
That's a sign of the bitterness to come. I mean, the Tory Reform Group do not speak for all that many Conservatives, but that is a clear sign of just how much bloodletting we might see and how rough it could get.
Let me just have a word with William Hague, who's at Conservative Party headquarters. Mr. Hague, what do you make of this Tory Reform Group pamphlet that's going around right inside the headquarters where you are at the moment, accusing people in the party of treachery?
Actually, I haven't seen it going around here in the headquarters, although somebody has picked it up from somewhere. But I don't think most members of the Conservative Party would make much of that. I think they would agree that what the party will need is a period of cool and calm reflection that should take at least several months in order to learn the lessons of what has happened tonight.
What John Sopel was reading out to us suggests that there are people in the Conservative Party who don't feel like that at all and feel that blame should be attributed immediately and something done about it. There should be a bloodletting.
Well, of course there will always be people with hard feelings after a result like the one that we are seeing at the moment that seems to be taking shape across the country. But I think the sensible course, and the course that the vast majority of people in the Conservative Party will want to follow, is one of very cool and calm reflection, of making sure that lessons are learned, but also making sure we don't lose sight of the fact that we are very proud of what we have achieved in this country. We don't stop being proud of it if it looks like we are losing an election.
Okay, thank you very much indeed for joining us again. Tony Blair not arrived yet. Peter, while we're waiting.
David, yes indeed. Now just look at this extraordinary picture of the country. Here it is, with all these forecast gains for Labour in the Midlands. Not a single Tory forecast for Wales, just one Conservative seat in Scotland, Gordon up their forecast. So the situation now in Wales is that Anthony Eden, with half the seats in Wales back in '55, had been followed by his successors with a handful of seats there, but John Major now with just no seats in Wales forecast, David.
Peter, thank you very much indeed. We've got a declaration in Glasgow, Galloway and Upper Nisdale. Ian Lang's seat. Ian Lang, 2,400 majority here. He was Secretary of State for Scotland. Now he's Trade and Industry Secretary.
I'm now about to announce the result for the Galloway and Upper Nisdale
Scottish National Party target.
I, James Maguire Smith, being the returning officer for the parliamentary election in Galloway and Upper Nisdale, hereby give notice that the total number of votes polled for each candidate in the Galloway and Upper Nisdale constituency was as follows. Katie Clarke, the Scottish Labour Party candidate, 6,861. Katie Clarke, the Scottish Labour Party candidate, 6,861. Mr. Flynn, could I ask you to assist those who have not been listening and do not wish to be courteous? Katie Clark, the Scottish Labour Party candidate, 6,861, 6861. Alan Kennedy, the Referendum Party, 428, 428. Ian Lang, Scottish Conservative and Unionist Party candidate, 12,825, 12825. John Ewan McKercher, Scottish Liberal Democrat, 2,700, 2700. Alistair Morgan, Scottish National Party, 18,000. Alistair Morgan, Scottish National Party, 18,449, 18449. Joseph Smith, UK
Alex Salmon, watching
Party,
this result from his county at Banffin-Buchan, does the SNP take Galloway and Upper Nithsdale, and Ian Lang, another cabinet minister to fall, is defeated. With a majority of 5,600, the Scottish National Party take that seat. Tony Blair is now speaking at the Labour Club in Sedgefield.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Thank you very much indeed. And, well, you know me, I'm never complacent, but no, it's looking very good all around the country. I just want to say a few things to you on this evening that is more moving and more important, certainly, than any of my life before. I want to say to you, first of all, thank you, because it's you people here who've been my foundation and support all the way through my political career, and you've given me the chance to lead my party, and I hope now to lead my country. Thank you.
This is Tony Blair speaking at the Sedgefield Labour Club at this moment.
And you know, it was here in this constituency that we created New Labour. Here that we recognised how important it was that we took the values of the Labour Party, the basic beliefs in justice and progress and a fair deal for ordinary people, in a sense of community and society, and we said, these are the values of the Labour Party, but we've got to make them live and breathe again for the modern world. And we did it. And we built a party here of which we're proud. Proud because we knew that all over this country there were people that were crying out for a sensible, mainstream, moderate alternative to the Conservative Party. A party they could support and look up to and respect. A party that would set about changing the things in British society that people know need changing. Decent schools for all our children, not just a few. A national health service rebuilt as the pride of the nation again. Our young people given hope, our elderly security in their old age, a nation reborn and renewed. That is what New Labour was always about. Not just about changing the Labour Party, but changing it for a purpose so that we could make the changes in our country that we know need to be made. That is one reason why tonight we are content and happy. Because we know that we had the courage to build a new Labour Party capable of taking this country through to the new millennium. But there is a second reason too, and a reason that I am very conscious of. That support that's been given to us tonight has been given to us as a new Labour Party. And it's been given to us so that we can bring our country together, so that we can unify it, so that we can put an end to divisions, so that we can build one country, one nation, one society, where every person gets a chance and a stake in it, where no one is left out. That is the message that we have taken round this country And that is the message the country has heard and celebrated.
Tony Blair then speaking at Sedgefield Labour Party.
And it's a great thing, is it not, to think of people from all walks of life, all classes, all sections of society coming behind a party that wants to unify this country. A party that will govern this country, not on the basis of sectional interests or vested interests, not on the basis of paying off this deal or that deal, but on the basis of bringing this country together and giving it unity and purpose for the future. We can do that now. And I learned those simple lessons and values here in this constituency. It's a strange thing to think as I look around this room and I see so many faces that I've known over all the years. So much good and decent and loyal support. And through all those bad and sad times in the Labour Party when we were trying to build this party into a modern party of the future, and sometimes it seemed difficult to do, but we persevered. And I was able to persevere because of the strength that you gave me. This is the foundation of my political life and career here in this constituency. And I cannot tell you what pleasure and pride it gives me to see so many people here whose loyal support and whose basic decency have made me what I am today. And my greatest pleasure will be to repay the trust that you've put in me. I believe in you, and I believe that you represent all the best in this country. And the greatest pride I could ever have is to repay that trust 1,000-fold.
Tony Blair then, with his Labour Party supporters in Sedgefield, in his constituency, the launch pad for his bid for the leadership, and now his arrival at the top job, but number 10, with the largest Labour majority ever, with his old friend and mentor, John Burton, who got him the seat in the first place. Now, we've had some more results in. South London seats which have gone to Labour. Wimbledon has been gained on a swing of 18%. Charles Goodson Wick, the doctor who went out to the Gulf War, defeated as the Conservative candidate there. Lady Olga Maitland, defeated in Sutton and Cheam on a swing. No swing. Liberal Democrat takes that seat. Liberal Democrats gain in Sutton and Cheam. They had that seat before, of course, way back in a by-election. And Lady Olga Maitland defeated there. And a Liberal Democrat gain in Carshalton and Wallington. 2,000 majority. Nigel Foreman out. Liberal Democrats go in. At Sedgefield, in the Labour Club, there's applause for Tony Blair and a bit of singing. Rather thin singing, I think, there. Let's go back to the results. A Labour gain in Middlesbrough South and Cleveland East on an 11% swing. Ashok Kumar, who won it in a by-election, then lost it the general election to Michael Bates, wins it back. Gloucester, the seat that Labour made such a fuss about, which now seems to be just a minor seat in the mass of victories that Labour have scored. This is the one they went to at the very beginning and they went to at the very end, saying it was the key seat for them, 58th in their target. It needed a swing of 4.36%, a paltry figure compared with the 11% they've actually got in Gloucester. Douglas French out and Tessa Kingham takes the seat, a journalist, former teacher and Oxfam worker. Croydon Central is a Labour gain. David Congdon loses Croydon Central, swing of 15%. Geraint Davis takes it. Croydon North, a Labour gain. Malcolm Wicks takes that on a 19% swing. He had the seat before, wins it back. And the SNP gain in Tayside North, Bill Walker, staunch figure in the House of Commons from Scotland, Conservative, right-winger, and he's defeated there a Eurosceptic and Vice Chairman of the Scottish Conservative Party. Shrewsbury and Atcham, Labour gain, seat taken by Paul Marsden, comes up from 3rd place. Liberal Democrats were in 2nd place and they fall a little bit. Conservatives down, and a swing from Conservative to Labour of 11% in Shrewsbury and Atcham. So the picture of the United Kingdom is changing fast as we speak, isn't it, Peter?
Tony Blair has simply transformed the landscape. Even when you go back to the last Labour government of 1974, that is what Harold Wilson achieved in the October 74 election. You see the crescent of red there and quite a lot of dotted seats for Labour outside London, the home counties and so on. Now that changed, of course. By 1983, at the high watermark of Thatcherism, there were only 2 Labour seats outside London in the south of the whole of England. Look how blue that map was. Here's how it had changed. The Tories had come back. The Tories had completely swept to power, sweeping the Labour Party almost out of it, and the Liberal Democrats, true, did have 23 seats, but look how few other opposition seats there are there. Now, here we have the new pattern of colour on the country now. In 1997, it's completely transformed. I'm going to flash the changes since 1983 there, so that you can see how Labour's comeback has been so much more spectacular than simply to return to October 74. This is Labour's best result ever. We've seen nothing like this in British history. And the Liberal Democrats, too, the best results since the 1930s, but Labour here with absolutely record-breaking success all over the country, in the home counties, in Surrey, down to the south coast there. The Midlands and the North almost entirely red, and of course Scotland now a huge Labour stronghold with only 1 Tory seat visible up there in the northeast. David.
Thanks, Peter. Well, Emma Udwin is at Cambridgeshire North West, and I gather Dr. Brian Mawhinney, chairman of the party, has gone to ground, rather.
Well, yes. His own result isn't expected for a long time, but Dr. Mawhinney is in the building. We understand he's spending a lot of time on the phone. He's talked to central office and spoken to John Major this evening, I understand, but it is being made clear to us he isn't going to want to talk to the media probably this evening. Now, obviously, among his own friends, there's a deep concern that he's going to be made the scapegoat for these extraordinary results that we're seeing. And they're saying that that would be very unfair, because one thing that has been clear throughout the campaign is that he has not had sole control of the campaign strategy. He's been chairing meetings at Conservative Central Office with Viscount Cranborne from Number 10 and the Deputy Prime Minister, Michael Heseltine, there, and he's had to share the responsibility with them, and therefore his friends say he must share the blame with them as well. And there has been one really distinctive thing about the way he's run the campaign, which is that he's impressed on Central Office that they have to run a campaign that the Prime Minister would be happy with. Now, what that's meant in practice is that where some people would have liked more direct, more personal attacks on Tony Blair, John Major wasn't happy with that, felt it was inappropriate to his personality and to his office as Prime Minister, and Dr. Mawhinney has backed him in that. Similarly, the Prime Minister has had his head over Europe. Now, some may say a different party chairman would have stood up to John Major and said, "I'm sorry, Prime Minister, this isn't working." But what his friends say is that when the aftermath is examined, people are going to have to look at the last 5 years, not just the last 5 weeks.
But surely, Emma, this is not a campaign that's gone astray. This is something much deeper than that, a result on this scale. I mean, he'll be saved by that, won't he? That, you know, no campaign could prevent a complete wipeout of a party.
Well, exactly. I mean, I think what his friends are saying is you're going to have to look a lot further back. You're going to have to look at the divisions, as we've heard many people mentioning on this programme. You're going to have to look at the way the party is handling the issue of Europe. But the fact of the matter is the party of the chairman has ultimate responsibility for a campaign, and that's something that Dr. Mawhinney accepted right at the outset. Goes with the territory, is what one of his friends said to me today.
Emma, thanks very much indeed. Let's go to Brent North, where, judging by his face, Dr. Rhodes Boyson has lost his seat.
Labour for 3,104.
Liberal
And
Democrat.
that Barry Strachan Gardner has been duly elected to serve as a member of the said constituency.
So Barry Gardner takes the seat from Sir Rhodes Boyson. Sir Rhodes Boyson, who's been the MP here since 1974, is defeated. And we go up to Rushcliffe, where Kenneth Clarke is defending his seat,
for each
the Chancellor of the
candidate
Exchequer.
at the said election is as follows. Boot Samuel, Liberal Democrat, 8,851. Chad Salary Catherine, the Referendum Party candidate, 2,682. I'll repeat that, 2,682. Clarke Kenneth Harry, the Conservative Party candidate, 27,558. Misiewska Anna, Natural Law Party, 115. Moore Joseph Duncan, UK Independence Party, 403. Pettit Jocelyn, the Labour Party candidate, 22,503. And I do hereby declare, I'll repeat that, and I do hereby declare that the said Kenneth Harry Clarke is duly elected Member of Parliament for the said constituency. Thank you.
Kenneth Clarke holds his seat, his majority way down, a swing against him of 11%. 11.5, we showed as 12.
Well, Mr. Returning Officer, ladies and gentlemen, firstly, I'm very grateful to the people of Rushcliffe for returning me to represent them again, which is a privilege I've had for 27 years, and I look forward to representing all of them to the best of my ability for another Parliament, which looks set to go well into the next century. For 18 of those years, I've had the pleasure of serving in government in many posts as a much reshuffled career. I'm extremely proud of what we've achieved in that 18 years, and I believe we can look back on a period of office in which we have transformed this country to make it a much more successful, self-confident and proud state. And I trust in the national interest that those who are now going to take responsibility for our affairs take good care of them and achieve success themselves. I particularly hope that in terms of jobs and prosperity and growth of the economy, we do well. I also hope we continue to improve the quality of our public services and demonstrate to the world that the quality of life in this country is one of the finest that you can find anywhere, and I hope they enhance what we have achieved over our period of office. On this occasion, when we are...
Edinburgh West, we have the declaration here. Edinburgh West, Lord James Douglas Hamilton for the Conservatives has been defeated here. The Liberal Democrats have taken the seat.
Thank you. I would like to thank all the people involved in running the election for the hard work they have put in.
It looks very much as though there won't be any Tories in Scotland at all, Peter. Nobody north of Hadrian's Wall for the Tory party.
Right, the map was very blue before. There it is in 1992, the last Parliament. Quite a few Tories there, 11 last time, at least it seems a lot when you think of it, although 72 altogether, not very many. But there we have the map of Scotland as forecast now, with not a sign of blue anywhere. The SNP taking seats from the Tories, the Labour Party taking seats from the Tories. We reckon it's 56 Labour. The 50 they had before was the highest ever in history. Now they're on 56. They almost do all the seats in Scotland. Up 6. Liberal Democrats up 2. The SNP 6 up 9. The Tories down 11. So here we have the story of Scotland then over the last 40 years or so. Anthony Eden with 36 of Scotland's MPs, roughly half of them. Going down to Margaret Thatcher, 10, the lowest ever up to now. John Major, 11 last time. And now the Tories with no MPs in Scotland at all. Records being created everywhere. Just look at this. There's the Duke of Wellington with the lowest Conservative vote in history, 29.4% up to now. 1832, the Duke of Wellington led his party to defeat just after the Great Reform Bill. Ted Heath was the worst this century with 36.7% percent of the vote in October 1974. And here we have John Major now with 32.1%. A little bit better than the Duke of Wellington, but still worse than people like the Earl of Derby in the mid-50s in the last century. David.
But the Scottish Tories should vote for devolution, and at least they'll get a presence in the Edinburgh Parliament, having been wiped out in Westminster. Wiped out in the Westminster Parliament.
With some share of the vote in Scotland, they would get some MPs in the
what's their
Parliament.
share? What's their actual share of the vote in Scotland?
Very low, at about 17%.
Yes, but it would give, under PR, it would give them a seat.
Of course.
Let's join Jane Frankie in Scotland. Jane.
Well, I think there's as much as shock here as there is elsewhere, David, because these have been major scalps, major shocks. Top name so far, of course, Scottish Secretary Michael Forsyth and the President of the Board of Trade, Ian Lang. Now, Michael Forsyth was famous for his Houdini act in the past because he's escaped defeat so often, but it failed him tonight, and Stirling is now a Labour seat. So too is Ayr a Labour seat. That's the first time Ayr ever has been a Labour seat. Eastwood perhaps was the one that gave people up here the most shock, because Eastwood is always perhaps somewhat laughingly known as a little bit of Tory England in Scotland. It was undoubtedly the safest seat in Scotland, one of the safest in Britain altogether, and it's gone to the Labour Party. Aberdeen South, again, has also gone to Labour. The Scottish Office Minister Raymond Robertson losing there. And Dumfries, the country's third safest seat, is now Labour. And they've lost Aberdeenshire West and Kincardineshire to the Liberal Democrats, Perth and Tayside North, of course, to the SNP, and Galloway as well. At the moment, we're waiting for one more Tory seat to declare up here. That's Malcolm Rifkin's seat in Edinburgh Pentlands, the Foreign Secretary's seat. At the moment, it's not looking at all promising for him. If his seat goes, that will be, in fact, the last Tory seat in Scotland.
Thanks very much, Jane. We hear that Tony Marlow, the blazered figure who supported John Redwood in the leadership campaign against John Major in '95, has lost his seat, Northampton North. And this was Ian Lang's result in Galloway and Upper Nisdale. Let's just have a look at it. The SNP take this seat. Ian Lang, Trade and Industry Secretary, is defeated there. And he's with John Nicholson now. John.
Ian Lang, I mean, this is a disastrous night for the Conservatives, not just in the UK as a whole, but specifically in Scotland. Not a single Conservative seat in Scotland. I mean, what lessons do you read into that?
Well, I haven't heard all the results yet, and I don't think you have either. But certainly it has been a bad night for us. We were trying to win a fifth successive term. No government has ever succeeded in doing that. And I think people did decide it was time for a change.
But this is more than an ordinary protest vote against an unpopular government. I mean, if we're in a position in Scotland where there is not a single Conservative Member of Parliament, which now looks increasingly likely...
Well, we don't yet know that.
Well, there are very few still to declare, as you know. The electorates clearly seem to be sending the Conservatives a message. I mean, what message in Scotland do you think they're being sent?
I think it's a United Kingdom message that they wanted a change of government. They were persuaded by the promises and pledges and high-flown rhetoric of the Labour Party. Now that party will have to deliver in government. It's always failed in the past, it'll probably fail again.
But of course your own defeat wasn't at the hands of the Labour Party, it was at the hands of the Scottish National Party. So there's something, apart from the national picture, there's something specific going on in Scotland too.
Yes, there's a rising tide, and in most of the country it has gone to Labour, but in other parts of the country it has gone to the party most likely to beat the government, and that is part of the pattern at the end of 4 parliaments.
I mean, you were seen as a possible leadership contender, of course, after this election. You're obviously not in a position to contend for the leadership now. I mean, who would you like to see succeed John Major?
I'm not going to talk about that sort of issue tonight.
Would you have run had you still been in Parliament?
I'm not going to talk about that either. That's a hypothesis on top of another
let's
hypothesis.
go to Mitcham and Morden, where we have the result of Dame Angela Rumbold's contest.
27,000. Linda Miller, BNP, 521.
Siobhan McDonough for Labour has taken the seat, and Dame Angela Rumbold has been defeated. Vice Chairman of the party.
Krishna Basan, 144. Thomas Walsh, Green Party, 415. And I do hereby declare that Siobhan McDonough is duly elected Member of Parliament for the Mitcham and Morden.
So Dame Angela Rumbold is defeated. Now we get the declaration from Tatton.
Ladies
Martin
and
Bell
gentlemen.
on the left there in
We
white.
have the result now
and
for the Tatton constituency.
Neil Hamilton defending for the Conservatives.
I, Brian Longden, being the acting returning officer
And this, of
at
course,
the
the
election
great
of a member of
contest
Parliament
between the man
for
in the white
Tatton
suit and the man
constituency,
with the
held
cloud
on
hanging
the
over
1st
his
day of
head
May,
of accusations
1997,
of
do hereby
improper
give
conduct in the
notice
House of Commons.
that the number of votes recorded
Sir
for
George
each candidate
Sir Gordon
at the
Downey, rather,
election
still to report
is
on
as
this.
follows. Martin Bell.
Independent.
29,300.
Well, it's fairly clear that Martin Bell has won that seat, independent. Remember, Labour and Liberal Democrats stood down to let Mr. Bell contest this seat against Neil Hamilton.
29,354 votes. David Lawrence Bishop,
Lord Barrow.
116 votes. Mostyn Neil Hamilton,
Conservative.
18,000.
A massive defeat for Neil Hamilton, 29,000 for Martin Bell, 18,000 for Neil Hamilton.
18,277 votes. Sam Hill, 295. Michael Paul Kennedy,
Natural Law.
123. Simon Lowther Kinsey,
Independent.
187.
This was the fifth safest Conservative seat, Tatton. Neil Hamilton was under pressure, some thought to stand down. The Prime Minister, right through this campaign, defended his decision not to try and have Neil Hamilton removed. There is the transvestite candidate, Miss Moneypenny, standing for Miss Moneypenny's glorious party. Nothing like a little local difficulty to attract a wide range of candidates. But anyway, Martin Bell went there. The Prime Minister right through said Sleaze wasn't an issue, this man was innocent until found guilty. The Tories were expected to rally round. The Tories quite clearly didn't rally round him. And Martin Bell finds himself in the unexpected position as a man with no particular political stance, no particular political views, except that he felt very strongly that standards in public life needed to be restored. And he's taken this seat. He was briefly a Liberal when he was at university. He's got a majority of 11,000. Here he is in the unexpected role of Member of Parliament.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Longden, I believe this is a proud moment for the people of Tatton, though I have to say a rather humbling one for me. I did not do this, you did it. It was not my victory, it was your victory. Though maybe there was a time when I received the endorsement of Sir Alec Guinness that I knew the force was with us. I believe you have lit a beacon which will shed light in some dark corners and illuminate the Mother of Parliament itself. It is a strong signal to the rest of the country which will be heeded. My thanks go to the returning officer and his staff, to the police, of course to my own staff, Kate Jones, my publisher and agent, Melissa, my daughter and spin doctor, Nigel Bateson, my former cameraman and close friend, to Kate Edgley, Dave Gein and many others. What you have accomplished here has been to me some kind of a political miracle. I shall be and shall remain independent. I shall take no party whip. I shall serve for one term only. I am deeply grateful to all of you, and may I just repeat for the last time a couple of lines from G.K. Chesterton that I used during the campaign. Smile at us, pay us, pass us, but do not quite forget that we are the people of England, and we have not spoken yet. You have spoken tonight magnificently, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart.
There was Martin Bell. And now Neil Hamilton, the defeated Conservative candidate.
Mr. Longden, ladies and gentlemen,
First of all, I would like to thank you, Mr. Longden, for the exemplary way in which you customarily have carried out your functions this evening, and to the police and all those who have been responsible for maintaining the security of this building to enable this democratic process to be carried out to the full, and to all those who have been responsible for counting the votes and delivering them here this evening. I have been proud to represent the Tatton constituency for the last 14 years, and of course am devastated at the result here this evening. I know it will come as a great disappointment to all those who have worked so hard to attempt to elect me for the 4th time as the Member of Parliament for this constituency.
Edinburgh Pentlands now, where Malcolm Rifkind is in difficulty. Foreign Secretary.
Linda Margaret Clark, Scottish Labour Party, 19,675. Jennifer Ann Gall, Scottish Liberal Democrat, 4,575. Stuart Gibb, Scottish National
We hear news
Party,
that Michael Portillo has lost his seat in Enfield by 1,700 votes.
Charles Morton Harper, Scottish Green Party.
So it looks as though it's Rifkind down and Portillo down.
Alistair David McConaughey, UK Independence Party, 81. Malcolm MacDonald, Referendum Party, 422. Malcolm Leslie Rifkind, Scottish Conservative and Unionist, 14,813. And I declare that Linda Margaret Clark has been elected to serve in Parliament as a member for the Edinburgh Pentlands constituency.
Well, she's a lawyer too, so she makes way at the Scottish Bar for Malcolm Rifkind, who's a Scottish lawyer. The Foreign Secretary defeated in Edinburgh Pentlands by Linda Clark. His majority of 5,000 turned into a majority for Labour of 5,000, a swing of 10% in Edinburgh Pentlands.
Tonight is a historic occasion. Democracy in action is awesome. Today at the polling station, I met by chance an old lady who was almost blind and she was crippled, but she was determined to vote. And I'm so pleased that so many people all over Britain have voted today. I thank the voters in Pentlands in particular for voting, and for so many of them voting for me. I thank the returning officer.
This is Enfield North, the returning officer in the constituency held by Michael Portillo, John Redwood at Wokingham. It may be that he is the only person on the right of the party left to challenge for the leadership, if there is, and when there is a leadership battle. Enfield North, again, Michael Portillo's constituency. We're waiting for the declaration there. And it looks as though it'll be a few minutes before we get that. So we have an extraordinary position of cabinet ministers falling fast. Here is Michael Portillo. There he is down at Enfield North. Let's just have a look at him. Looking quite perturbed. Tony King, we're losing minister after minister after minister. What's the current tally?
Absolutely. It looks as though there's going to be one of the biggest culls of ministers in this century. The Conservatives in 1945 lost 5 members of the cabinet, including, it must be said, Harold Macmillan, who went on to do good things. It looks as though of all the ministers who are defending Tory seats tonight, 2/3 of them are likely to lose their seats. A lot have already gone. We've had Ian Lang, Michael Forsyth, Tom Sackville, Alistair Burt, John Boas, Sir Nicholas Bonsor. They're going down like 9 pins.
Okay, thanks very much. Well, that's the way it crumbles. Jeremy.
Cecil Parkinson, who do you fancy for the leadership, assuming you don't have to go to the House of Lords?
Well, I think that we really have to wait and see about that. We have to see who's going to be there. And I just think it's far too early to discuss it. I really do. I simply don't know who the candidates are likely to be.
Now, Ian Duncan Smith, what in your view went wrong?
I think it's very difficult. We'll have to look now carefully and try and assess it. But my instinct tells me that it all really started to go wrong for us in the first year when we crashed out of the ERM, because I think the British public then decided that we were no longer in charge of the economy at that stage. And if you look at the opinion polls, we went off the edge of a cliff at that point, and we've never really recovered through Maastricht, through all the difficulties. The fact that we had perhaps another year and a half of...
Edwina Carey can join us, I believe. Can you join us, Mrs. Carey?
Yes, indeed.
In fact, I see behind you, I think that the Prime Minister's arriving in Huntingdon, so we'll just come back to you in just a second or two, if we may. Why do you think John Major lost, Mrs. Carey?
Well, we all lost, and this is part of the tragedy. We've lost most of the cabinet, it sounds like, and all the seats in Scotland. I think in the end we lost because we did not satisfy the British people about our probity, about our wisdom, and about our common sense.
Do you blame the Eurosceptics in particular?
It's more than that. It's not just Eurosceptics. I think the British nation, whatever its dislike about Europe, has always broadly been pro-European. But whatever their moans about education, whatever moans about the police and law and order, they've always been, as well, broadly pro-public service, especially in those services they can't provide for themselves.
Do you share Ian Duncan Smith's view, we were just hearing him express there, that it all started to go wrong when you tumbled out of the ERM?
Well, I like Ian very much indeed, but I am reminded that he's one of the people that's been voting against the Prime Minister and voting against us on a number of issues right through this Parliament. And that kind of disunity and disagreement with the party line has not, in the end, been very helpful. I think it started before that, to be honest. We came in last time on the belief and the promise that we could keep taxes down, and that proved impossible. Perhaps we should have realised it, but in the end we put taxes up, the biggest peacetime hike in taxes we've ever seen, and the electorate didn't like
Ian
it.
Duncan Smith, what do you think?
Well, with respect to Edwina, I have to say that this really comes back to that fact that we were in a recession longer than we anticipated, hence taxes went up because of the ERM and because it pegged us into a very depressed state. When we tumbled out, the British public said, enough, and I think that's our problem. We have to look at this carefully. It's not the only reason, but it's a very strong feature. All the polls show us that.
Let's hear from George Gardner, who was one of the more troublesome Conservative Eurosceptical backbench MPs who's in Reigate waiting for his result. What do you think it was, Sir George? You've been predicting this for ages.
Oh yes, I mean the irony is that if John Major had listened to the advice that I and others like Ian Duncan Smith were giving him, a year or so ago, then we wouldn't have had the rout that we've clearly got this evening.
So George, do you think it was helpful to Mr Major's chances of winning that you described him as having his buttocks clenched on the fence?
I don't think it affected the matter at all by then. I think the Tories had lost anyway.
But Sir George, you were one of numerous people in your party who was setting out deliberately to undermine the Prime Minister.
No, we weren't setting out to undermine the Prime Minister. We were setting out to get him to adopt some sensible policies that had some credibility with the electorate.
Would it have made a difference?
Alas, and he's paying the price for that now.
Would it have made
we all are. All the Conservative Party are.
Sure, although you're not part of it at present. But
I'm not part of it now.
Indeed.
No.
Would it have made a difference if Kenneth Clarke had not had the influence he'd had?
Oh, I'm sure it would, though it's a question of degree, isn't it? I'm sure still the Tories would have lost. I tend to agree with Duncan Smith that really this slide began with the departure from the ERM, or indeed sticking in the ERM for far too long.
Cecil Parkinson, you've already told us that you think it was simply a question that you've been around so long.
I think that was a major factor, not the only thing, but I think really and truly it is a tremendous undertaking to try to win 5 consecutive elections. And I think one always recognised that. And the Labour Party has reorganised itself, has regrouped, improving with each election since '79. And sooner or later, we were not going to win. And there have been all sorts of other factors, as Ian's been pointing out. But I do think it would have been very difficult in any circumstances to win a 5th term.
What do you think about Michael Portillo losing his seat? He was your PPS, wasn't he?
Well, he was my special advisor, and then he was my number 2 in transport. I'm devastated. I think he's a quite outstanding politician.
We should say the declaration hasn't actually happened yet, but the word
but I
is
mean,
that he's
he's been an excellent defence minister. He's very highly regarded in the department. He's had a very good election campaign, come over well, and I'm just extremely sorry. I think he's the most able person.
Well, who knows? He might still
back.
hold it. Ian Duncan Smith, who will you now? You backed John Redwood, didn't you, when he challenged for the leadership?
Yeah, at the leadership challenge, yeah.
He probably is about the only Eurosceptic left in a position to do so next time, I guess.
I think we have to take stock. I don't think it's a chance to rush around. I think the Prime Minister has to think, maybe the ex-Prime Minister John Major ought to think carefully about what he plans to do. We don't want recriminations. What we actually want is carefully to analyse what's happened and try and rebuild this party back into government. That's the key.
Thank you all very much, David.
Thanks, Jeremy. Well, John Redwood is having an emotional night, rushing around on the telephone and listening to all these results, and no doubt waiting to see what happens to his potential rival for the leadership, Michael Portillo. He was there at his count in Wokingham, where he's been constantly on the telephone and being congratulated, looking rather moved, by his wife, Gail. So, we've had other results in which we should look at. Perhaps the most striking, Mrs. Thatcher's old seat, Finchley.